society and the nation. The webinar series is becoming successful, and it is due to the hard efforts and tenacity of the chief organizer and chairperson of this webinar series, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Bedkar sir. At the outset of this international webinar, I welcome him as the chairperson of this webinar. Today I am feeling immense pleasure to announce that today for the international webinar, we have the honorary speaker and chief guest, Alice Whitehead ma'am, who is an educational consultant director from Orenda Learning, Monash University, Singapore. She is going to enlighten us on the topic, develop your service program using SASM. On behalf of the organizing committee of Shri Kumarswami College, Ausa, I heartily welcome you, ma'am, as an invited speaker and chief guest for this international webinar. I also welcome all honorable organizing committee members, including Vice Principal Dr. S.D. Misal sir, Junior College Supervisor Ravindra Karanje sir, MCVC Supervisor Praveen Udge sir, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Sanjay Kale sir, Dr. Anita Dhole ma'am, Dr. Sudhir Garad sir, Ambadas Khillare sir, Dr. Patwari sir, and Dr. Wadkar sir. We all are eagerly waiting for the keynote speech by speaker. And so, on behalf of the organizing committee of SIDBI, and request you to start your presentation and keynote speech. Please, ma'am, welcome.
Thank you very much for that wonderful welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very grateful to have been invited and to have the opportunity to share a little bit of our work at Orenda Learning and our expertise in this subject area. So I will be presenting this webinar on promoting community engagement for young people that leads to active global citizenship. And I'm going to give you a bit of background first about the organization itself and the work that we do. And then I will go into sharing some key ideas and concepts around this topic in which we are experts in. And I will share a little bit more about my background as well. So can I just confirm that I have 40 minutes to speak? Is that correct?
You can continue for more time also. You can continue for more time also. No restriction, but it's expected to speak 45 minutes, okay?
Okay, perfect. Just so I can pace it, that's great. And I may ask at certain points for you to write some things in the chat. The people that are here to listen to this webinar, I'm curious to learn a little bit about you and your backgrounds and your situation as well, just so I can understand more and tailor as I speak. So perfect. I would love to know, to begin with, why you are here and what your interest in this area is. Maybe you are a teacher, maybe you work in an organization that is connected with community or with young people somehow. So if you feel to write in the chat your reason for being here on this call, I would be very interested to read that. So please go ahead. Okay, let's get into it. So, slides from here? Maybe not. Okay, sorry. Bear with me. Okay, perfect. So I am from an organization called Orenda Learning, as you have already learned, and we are an impact-driven social enterprise. So just to share a little bit about my background, I'm an educator. I have spent many years classroom teaching and also coordinating service programs in schools, and service I'll speak a bit more to this this notion of service as we go on through the presentation, but it's essentially community action. So young people taking action specifically in community in order to accelerate their learning, but also to support positive change in their communities. So I, up until about 5 years ago, was teaching at a major international school in Singapore called United World College. Some of you may be familiar with this school. It's a movement of schools. There's about 20 of them around the world now, and there is one in India. And I'm also alumni of this this college in Singapore. So I'm the product of a very service-driven curriculum. The one of the point of differences for this movement of schools is that a significant portion of the learning beyond the academic subject areas is done through service, through community action. So in 2017, I resigned from my position at the college and founded Orenda Learning with the vision to create a program and a consulting organization that could support schools around the world and other organizations like charitable organizations, not-for-profits and NGOs, outdoor education companies, really support organizations that needed guidance in their service programs. So that was the main driver behind founding Orenda Learning, and we really envisage a better future for our planet. I think we'll all agree that we have some issues on our planet at the moment that need to be addressed, and service is one way that we can work on this area. So I will talk to you more about this as I go. So Orenda Learning is a fairly small company, but we have some consultants and associates that are located around the world, and obviously other team members in our company also. So I just wanted to share with you some of our other team members there up on the screen. You can see Suji and Shri and Alva, all international educators and with great experience in this subject area. We work with schools in many different parts of the world. We do have one school in India who we have worked with recently, Neve Academy, and we also have a strong relationship with EduTech India, which is a great company who supports us with our technology needs. So that's a little bit of background there about us and who we deal with around the world. So to get a bit more deeply into the presentation now and talk a little bit about the problems on our planet. As I mentioned just before, I'm sure you're all aware we're at crisis point on our Earth, and there are some major issues that need to be addressed. 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. 8 men own more wealth than the poorest 350 billion people on our planet. Many species facing extinction, including 25% of all mammals and 13% of birds. And those are just scratching the surface of some of the statistics that we're facing and some of the challenges that we're facing. And at Orenda Learning, we believe that a brighter future is possible, and we believe that part of the solution is that we need to step into active service on our planet, where we're really engaging young people in learning that it's through service and through community action that they can make a difference, and we can all work together and collaborate to make a difference and to make the world a better place. And there's many different ways that we can do that, and I'm going to get into that a bit more as the presentation continues. But our products and our services are really focused around offering solutions for schools, particularly in terms of frameworks and curriculum to help them to teach young people to make a difference. So we have a couple of things that we do. One is we have an online program called Be the Change, which is a series of lessons and a toolkit to support young people to engage in their communities and understand how to engage in their communities. And then we also offer consulting. And what we hope that leads to is best practice programs. And I will again talk to that a little bit more in a couple of slides. So Be the Change is very closely tied with the Sustainable Development Goals. It's a big connection that we make in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals really informing the framework for the program and the theory within the program, and helping us to teach young people to align with the certain goals that have been set as a planet for us to ensure that we're all on a similar pathway, on a similar track. So I'd like to now define service. As you heard at the beginning of the presentation, when I shared the topic, I spoke about community action, and that's another name for service. You could also call it volunteering. The idea behind defining service is ensuring that within schools there is a common understanding of what it is we're supporting children and young people to understand and learn to do. And we define service as the voluntary act of addressing community needs and ethically working towards sustainable solutions. It's a process that involves active consultation and collaboration amongst stakeholders, leading to reciprocal, respectful, and open-hearted partnerships. And what we're really trying to get young people to understand when we teach them about service and about community action is that there's more to it than them just spending an hour volunteering as a one-off at maybe a charity in their local area. There is a bigger picture to it, and there are certain things that need to be in place to ensure that students aren't developing misconceptions around what it is that they're doing. We want to ensure that they're learning to connect with the people that they're serving and they're supporting, and they're learning to collaborate and build partnerships with these people. So moving on, I spoke a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals already, and the Sustainable Development Goals offer humanity the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. So they really address the global challenges we face, including poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace and justice. And a lot of the schools that we work with and maybe the same in your schools. A lot of the schools that we work with are teaching the Sustainable Development Goals and placing a fairly strong focus on them in order to help young people to understand that there are challenges on the planet that need to be addressed. Moving a little bit more deeply into this, Sustainable Development Goal 4 is quality education, and Target 4.7 of Sustainable Development Goal 4 states that by 2030, which is fairly soon, all learners need to acquire the knowledge and skills to promote sustainable development. So it's explicitly written into the Sustainable Development Goals that we should be teaching global citizenship education and education for sustainable development in schools, and we should be mainstreaming this as something that is normal to teach, as well as academic subjects. So we are placing a stronger emphasis on this area, or maybe even introducing this area into curriculum where it may not already have been. And this will support a more holistic learning experience for our students. Obviously, academic subjects are extremely important, but this is kind of broadening the scope of what we're teaching, and also giving the opportunity for some really practical hands-on learning for our students that will allow them to really build certain skills and qualities that they may not learn through academic subjects. So some schools that we work with, and we work with a lot of schools that are already running service programs, so they already have programs where their young people are engaged in community action. And in some cases, these programs aren't executed particularly well. There isn't strong curriculum in place, there isn't strong frameworks in place, and service programs can cause more damage than good. They can cause young people to form misconceptions about what it is that they're doing. Maybe they will develop a sense of saviorism or a sense of superiority if they don't understand clearly that what they're doing when they engage in community action is something that is benefiting them as well. And if service programs aren't set up well, it can also disempower communities. So if we send young people into their communities with the wrong attitudes and the wrong ideas, then it can be a disempowering experience for the people that they are serving, that they're supporting. So this is just highlighting the need. If any of you are running these kind of things in your school or are intending to, it highlights the need to place some focus on getting it right and doing the research and ensuring the curriculum and the frameworks are in place. So here are 3 tips for developing amazing service programs, and I'm going to speak a little bit to these in the rest of this session. One thing is building agency and really inspiring young people to engage in service, and building agency and that sense of inspiration and motivation in young people helps them to feel empowered and helps them to feel that they could make a difference. As I explained a few slides ago, there are many problems, there are many issues on our earth at the moment, both in our local and immediate communities and also in our global community. And as young people, it can seem overwhelming. It can feel overwhelming, like there's so many challenges. How can I possibly make a difference? And so that's where building this sense of agency and supporting young people to feel inspired is something that can be really positive for them, and help them to develop holistically in terms of who they are as people. Delivering best practice and service programs is the idea that there's certain criteria that need to be met to ensure that what happens in a volunteering program or a service program is as positive as possible for all involved. Action, it can be very positive for your school in terms of the reputation of your school. You can get attention from local publications or even global publications, and I'll share a couple of examples with you slightly later. And that kind of attention and highlighting what your students are doing can not only inspire your students and your staff within your school, also your parent community, as well as other community members and stakeholders. So all of those things are great to bear in mind if you're trying to develop some kind of program that offers these kind of opportunities to the young people at your school. So I'm going to speak a little bit now to kind of some of the themes within Be the Change, which is the curriculum and the program that we have developed, and these are just useful ideas and concepts to consider. So firstly, the notion of community. When we speak about community in our program, we talk about the immediate community being the school campus itself, or potentially students' homes. We speak about the local community being the immediate surrounding community that the school might be in, that where if students were to engage in some kind of volunteering or community action in their local area, it would be within traveling distance of their school. They wouldn't have to go too far to do some volunteering work. And then we speak about the global community, and that's the wider world. And we make these distinctions because depending on your student service engagement, if you're working with particularly young students, it's recommended to provide opportunities for them to engage in volunteering in their immediate environment. So that might be their home environment, or that might be the school environment. And when I was working at United World College in Singapore, our service program started with 4-year-olds, and it went all the way up to grade 12 to 18 years. Service on campus, so maybe they were helping to pick up litter that had been dropped. Maybe they were wiping down benches after their peers had their lunch times, in kind of thing. So they're obviously more tangible experiences for younger children that can have a really big impact. It's harder for them to conceive a service on a global scale, right? Whereas would be able to grasp more easily the concept of supporting a cause that is in a different country to them. So those are the distinctions we make. We guide when they're addressing maybe that's something they notice as they're walking to school or as they're in a car. So here an example here on the screen. You can see that this local community has a litter issue, and so potentially students could be involved in helping to address this problem, and the process of helping students to understand that they can affect change on their environments and that problems in our communities can be solved when everyone works together. So there are different types of service action, and I'm going to speak to these a little bit. There is direct, indirect, advocacy, and research. And all of these can be really useful methods of helping children and young people to learn how to serve in their communities. Direct action has been a little bit challenging over the past couple of years with the COVID restrictions. A lot of the schools that we work with have not been able to run their normal service programs where children were going out to volunteer at local charities, local organizations. So direct service action is where students have face-to-face connection with the people that they are serving. Indirect action is where they're not directly connected with the people or the cause that they're serving, but they're still taking action that has an impact. For example, they might be fundraising, raise to a need in their community that they feel really passionate about. It could be something like, they might be concerned about animal welfare in their local area. And so they might decide that they want to raise awareness about this, and they want to tell their peers and their family and friends and other members of the community about this problem so that other people can help and feel inspired to take action. And then finally, the fourth type of service is research. So they may be working alongside an organization that is already in the field addressing this cause, and they may be helping the organization to conduct research. It could be something like maybe there's a beach in the local area that has got litter on it, and maybe they want to identify what different types of litter they see on this beach and try and figure out the cause, where the litter is coming from. Maybe it's washing in from another city nearby, or maybe it's coming downstream from a river, or maybe it's visitors to the beach that are dropping their litter. So doing that kind of research. And you can see that links can be made with other curriculum areas. So if it is research that they're conducting, this could turn into a mathematical problem, and it could connect with that, mathematics as a subject area. They could look at graphing, surveying, formatting their findings, and the learning experience could become quite holistic. So service pathways is something that we talk about as well when we speak about different types of service. And there's two different pathways that students can take. A charity, like organizations around the world that are doing great work, that your students could potentially work along support them. And a great example is the fundraising one. That they want to solve that problem. So potentially it could be something like the school has no recycling program. Many links that can be made to find an authentic community need, and we encourage them to go on a community walk. So this could be virtually, where they do it in their imagination. If you're limited or restricted in terms of movement due to the pandemic. Or it could be an actual community walk if that is feasible in your local area. So you can take your students out and walk through the community and ask them to think about the needs that they see. Ask them to observe and consider areas such as the environment, education, social services, recreation and activities, health and safety, and look for problems. So consider the issues that these cause for stakeholders in their community, and maybe it's problems that they face themselves. Maybe there might be no children's playground in the local area, and they might decide that's something that they care really passionate about, and so they might start a service project where they they get one of the governing bodies in your local area to start to think about putting in a playground, and maybe they do some fundraising to support the development of that, or maybe they even design some of their own equipment and put that in. So there's an activity idea. I'd now like to just talk a little bit about student agency, which is really a buzzword in education at the moment, particularly international education. It's something that we've heard a lot about lately in terms of schools very interested in building student agency, and in student agency as the capacity to set a goal, reflect and act responsively to affect change. So it's about the empowerment and the ability being in the hands of the young people themselves, and having them be supported to make responsible decisions and choices and act themselves, rather than being spoon-fed. So service is a great way to build student agency, and I've got some tips on the next slide as to how to do that. So telling young people that they are needed, telling young people that they can help to affect change in their surroundings, in their schools, in their communities on a local and global scale. Supporting students to learn what they need to know before they step into action in their communities. So making sure that they've got the foundational understandings in place to minimize misconceptions. Encourage students to follow their passions and engage with causes that matter to them. And we talk about this a lot in our program. We really encourage students to connect with problems that they care about. Animals is a great one. We really found that, I've really found in my career in working in this area with children and young people that animals, they seem to care quite passionately, a lot of the children that I've worked with, about animals. So it's a great direction to take them down in terms of getting them engaged in something that matters to them. Working with other children as well is always a nice one. If there's children in your local area that are maybe not so fortunate, or need support in some way through tutoring, or even buddy reading, having older children read to younger children, those are the kind of things that children can really connect with and feel passionate about. So making sure that if you're going to run any of this kind of program in your school, that students have the capability and the tools and the material to take independent action, so they can work together with their peers, and they don't have to have the teachers telling them what to do all of the time, and they can really work on it themselves, solve their own problems, and come with successful outcomes. Giving students time and space, so placing an emphasis on this area of learning and finding time in your busy school days to allow young people to engage in this kind of important activities and this very important work. In some of the schools that I've worked in and with, there are after-school clubs, there are lunchtime clubs, but some of the schools we work with actually have curriculum time for this. So a big international school in Riyadh that has just come on board with us are offering our program over 6 months, 5 1-hour plus sessions per 2 weeks. So it's a significant amount of curriculum time that they're finding to teach this subject area. And that's something that we're seeing more and more in schools. So it's obviously, it's very important and pertinent for us on our planet at the moment that we start to move education in this direction. So empower students to plan their service work as informed agents of change, and really developing relationships with carefully selected community partners. So charitable organizations, as I spoke about earlier, if your school is willing and able to build relationships with a number of charities in your local and then on a global scale as well, and you keep these relationships over a period of time, then you can really develop some very effective learning experiences for your students that you can continue to connect them with over years, you know, and if they're very passionate about a cause, then they will keep coming back to it. So the United World College, where I was working in Singapore, over 2 campuses, has over 100 grassroots organizations that they have long-term relationships with that are located all around the world. And these are ongoing relationships. Year after year, they support, or the students support, the organizations through fundraising endeavors and other types of service work. And in return, these charitable organizations offer really powerful learning experiences for the students. So building ongoing reciprocal relationships is very a very positive way to build student agency, because it means that the young people have got these partnerships that they can get involved with. So following a cycle, some of you may be familiar with this. This cycle is not developed by us, it's developed by a woman called Catherine Berger Kay, and she's really been in this space of service learning for a long time, a couple of decades, and she developed this very excellent cycle, which is important. It's important to engage students in a cycle as they take action in their community. And the reason for this is it helps them to be really informed about what they're doing. So you can see there that there's the investigation, preparation, action, reflection, and demonstration. And within this cycle, they would follow it maybe in a ordered fashion the first time around, but then they might jump in to the different stages as they continue to deepen their work on their service project. But just very briefly, the idea is that before they take action, so before they're out in their communities doing something, they've investigated. So they've found out more about the community need. They've thought about how they can help, what they can offer, what skills they bring to helping to solve the problem, how they can work together in groups to help to address these problems as well. And then they prepare for that action. So they might put a project plan together, they might gather resources, they might decide how many trips they need to a certain site, what kind of fundraising they're going to do, or what they need to, who they need to speak to in their community to help them to solve the problem. And then they step into action and they start to actually do. And this just helps, it helps them to not form those misconceptions that I spoke about before. And I'll give you just a little example of this. I was part of a trip of students to Cambodia a few years ago to work with a wonderful organization just out of Phnom Penh called Free the Bears. And this organization helps to protect sun bears and moon bears that are under great danger due to habitat loss, due to wildlife trafficking, and that kind of thing. And the idea was that these students would go on a 1-week trip, and on that trip they would meet with the organization and they would engage in action. But when these students arrived in Cambodia and I was there with them on the trip, and I started asking them if they knew about Cambodia's history, if they were aware that in the late 70s for 4 years there was mass genocide and nearly 2 million Cambodians died. And many of the students I spoke to actually didn't know about that. And the issue with that is that they were forming ideas about the problem that Free the Bears were addressing without fully understanding the context, without fully understanding the political, the socio-cultural, the environmental, the economic issues that had led or supported that community need to be an issue. And so they were coming with misconceptions. And luckily on the trip we engaged them with a lot of historical sites, and they got to understand more about what had happened. But had they gone through a thorough investigation process before going on the trip, they would have had a much clearer understanding and ability to connect with the cause in community. So I hope that gives you an idea of why it is necessary that they do follow some kind of process. These are just a couple of examples. Earlier on, I spoke about the benefits of service. There is a multitude of benefits, but one of them is that it can be great PR for your school. And these are two projects that I know of on kind of a more of a personal level. These students on the left petitioned they were from United World College in Singapore, and they petitioned a very large Singaporean food company to ask them to stop using palm oil in their products. And they got such a number of signatures and brought such attention to this issue that this large Singaporean company actually did stop using palm oil. So that's a really great student-led initiative that had a major impact and also a lot of great PR for their school. The student on the right is from a school in Wellington in New Zealand, and she created a service project where she felt that she wanted her peers. She noticed that there were people in her community, other children, other young people who did not have shoes, did not have the adequate or appropriate shoes to engage in sports activities. And so she started a project where she would get donations of good quality shoes, and she would redistribute them. And this has turned out to be a really big project in New Zealand. It's also got a lot of attention, and she's doing a really great job, and she's only just turned 18 years old. So there are a couple of really fantastic examples. I did have a couple of videos that I wanted to show you, but I think we might be running out of time. So I can just speak to these a little bit, because these are specific to your area in India. This is a wonderful video, and I can share these links with you afterwards, maybe, and they could be shared amongst the participants. But this is a wonderful example of service on a major beach in Mumbai, and this man took it upon himself to do a huge beach cleanup. And maybe you've heard of this initiative, but what he did on this beach in Mumbai was nothing short of phenomenal. It went from a rubbish tip almost to a really beautiful, immaculate looking beach. And then
this is not a landfill. This was first a beach in Mumbai, India, a little over 3 years ago.
I will share these links with you. And then the next thing that happened is that the turtles returned to this beach. So there is some incredible footage in this video of turtles laying eggs and baby turtles being birthed. And this is just an example of what is possible if we do take action in our communities, and we do help children and young people to learn that it is possible for them to affect change, and then for them to spread that word to their family and other people in the community, and then together we can hopefully start to make some positive change on our planet. And just to finish off, I'd like to share this.
2 years after the cleanup of Mumbai was so.
This lovely saying, every small act can make a difference, and lots of small acts together can create something big. And this is connected to a story called the Starfish Story, which is a really great one to use with children, particularly young children, but children of all ages. I've used it with children of all ages, and it's a story of a little boy that was on a beach, and the beach was filled with starfish that had been washed up, and he was bending down and picking up one starfish at a time and throwing each one of them back into the ocean. And a man came up to him and he said, "Young boy, there's thousands of starfish that have been washed up on this beach. You can't possibly save them all. What are you doing throwing them one by one back into the ocean?" And the little boy bends down, picks up one more starfish, throws it into the ocean, and he says to the man, "I made a difference for that one." And it's just the idea that, yes, that, it is quite overwhelming where we are at on our planet at the moment. We're really in a challenging position. But if we can teach young people that they can take small acts, and that with lots of small acts, with everyone taking small acts, we're going to achieve something big. I think it's a really positive message that can be very empowering and help them to develop their agency. So that's it from me. If you want to find out more about our work, here are some links. I'd actually like to drop the top one into the chat, so I'll do that when I stop sharing my screen, because that is it's a download link for some free activity templates that we have. They're great. There's 10 plus activity templates that you can use with your students. They're completely free, and they will help you to get this kind of work started in your school if it isn't already. If you're already doing this kind of thing, then I'm sure that you will find them useful. And also, please, we would love for you to follow us on social media. Our Instagram site is curated specially for young people. So our LinkedIn and our Facebook is for our colleagues, our other educators in the community and parents, but the Insta site is for young people particularly, so feel free to use that with your students. There is a lot of really helpful tips and inspiration there that you could get them to explore. That could be a lesson right there for them. Yes, thank you so much for listening and staying engaged, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further interest in our work, and I will just drop this link into the chat as well as an email address for you to contact us on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your informative and inspirational lecture on the topic. You have talked in detail about how to develop service program for the betterment of the planet and how it can enrich the experience of students in learning through service. Thank you, ma'am. Now, after this inspirational and enlightening keynote speech, I would like to request participants, if you have any question, any doubt, any opinion, any suggestion, please come with it. Please, participants.
So good evening, ma'am. Dr. Shukla here.
Hi.
Dr. Shukla, am I audible?
Yep,
Am I audible?
you are.
Yeah. With your experience, ma'am, I would like to know that we are also very much with the community service learning activities. And the problem, usually comes the need felt, when we are finding out assessing need felt best. So what kind of study or survey, longitudinal or cross-sectional studies, which one is more beneficial? Because many times, the things should be based on need. So it sometimes misguiding takes us to some other way. That is first question. And my second question is, at the time of evaluation, whatever the projects we are doing at SLA, with the help of medical students, I'm concerned with the medical faculty. So medical students, usually we are doing health-related activities in the community, and we are going in a very tribal areas and rural areas. So now, how to assess and evaluate? Many of the times it happens we cannot quantify what we have done at the end, because we want to evaluate and we have to grow further. It should be a spiral of continuous improvement. So what kind of suggestion you would like to give for evaluation purpose? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, no problem. So sorry, can we just go back to your first question, because I missed a piece of that. Can you just repeat that a little bit?
Yeah. The community-based programs, we start with the need best. So when we want to find out the need of that particular community, we are conducting some surveys or some kind of studies. So what kind of studies really helps? Longitudinal study or maybe a cross-sectional study? Which one is more better, and how we can proceed for that particular project? Because many of the times the objective gets misdirected because of this misselection. So that is my question, how we can proceed to identify the needs of the community. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I'll speak to that one first. I mean, this is a common challenge, and this is why within our program we really promote this investigation stage of service projects, because without that, then yes, our service action can be misguided, and it can lead to problems, to challenges, and especially for the young people that are or any people that are engaged in doing this work. It can also lead to issues within the community. Whoever is being served, whoever is receiving the service, if it's misguided and misinformed, then it can be very disempowering for them. So assessing needs, what we recommend and what we teach in our program is that there must be consultation with stakeholders, and that must take place over an extended period of time. And so you've got to be asking the questions, right? You need to be asking, what support do you need? What help do you need? How can we best serve you? And really building those relationships over a long period of time. And we define best practice. One of our components of best practice service is longitudinal work. So really the projects that have the most breadth and depth are the ones that take place over an extended period of time. And maybe it is that the student groups are cycling through. So maybe you would have, you might have students working on the project for a year, and then they might move on and another group of students come in, but the project itself remains the same and it's ongoing, right, over years. But the one thing that you need to obviously consider as well is community self-reliance. So not to build up too much of a reliance, so that if you disappear and you're not helping anymore, you're not serving anymore, then suddenly the organization can't cope, which is another problem in community development, right? So I hope that answers your question. In summary, long-term relationships, asking the right questions of the stakeholders, and ensuring that with that extended time, then you're really getting to know the need the people involved, and that kind of thing. So that's the first one. So in terms of evaluation and measuring impact, yes, this is a really big challenge, and it's not just people designing service programs that experience this challenge. It's all impact work globally. It's like a global conundrum that I don't think we have the clear answers to. I think there's a lot of frameworks being developed for evaluation of impact, but we're still working on it as a whole, as a whole community in this area of work for sustainable development. I think that there's a couple of methods though that you can use, and it depends whether you've already got how far into your service work you've got. Of course, if you haven't begun, then to do an initial assessment is feasible, right? So you look at the problem, you look at the need, the issues that it's causing in community, the people that are affected, and you do an assessment, a baseline assessment, and then you do you implement your service project, and then you do another assessment, at a milestone, maybe 6 months in, or a year in, or after a month, and you see what the difference is between before and after, right? If you can't do that, if the service project has already begun, then you have to evaluate as you're going, and I think just doing what you can to gather information. So it's hard for me to give you a really clear answer without knowing exactly what the project is. But for example, you could survey, if it's a project that involves people, one way you could measure impact is by surveying the people that you're supporting, and ask them, what do you remember from before and what do you see now?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. We are adopting how families for healthcare, and we are visiting regular basis on longitudinal study what we are going with. And I'm a professor of community medicine with Motiwala Homeopathic Medical College, Nashik, Maharashtra, India. And we are running this program since last 10 years. But many of times it happens that we start with something and that proves later on, of little use with the people. And then we had to rethink again, that is a basic thing. And many of the times the question arises, why we are, adopting families and why we are visiting this. So what is the outcome? So many of the time it is not measurable. It may be a, qualitative analysis we can go with, but quantification becomes a little difficult for us. So that is the only question. So many of the times people ask, but I will tell you that people respect a lot and they admire a lot this activity, and the project is going well with the all grace of God. Thank you, ma'am.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla, sir. Come in, ma'am. Come in.
Thanks, sir. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. Alice, ma'am. I'm assistant professor Manjusha Bhoi from Ashoka College of Education, Nasik. Actually, I was listening your session along with my son, so he also want to give you a compliment. He is in 7th standard. Yes, Tanish, please.
Hello, ma'am. Tanish here.
Hi. So nice to know you were watching.
Thanks. Thanks, ma'am, for informative session.
Wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you sharing such wonderful session. Thanks for giving the project information and all the things. Thanks, Mr. Bedkar, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Is there anybody else with any more question, doubt, opinion, suggestion? All are welcome, please. Honorable speaker has delivered very inspirational, informative, enlightening speech, which is very useful for the betterment of our planet and enriching the learning experience of students through different activities for the communities. Now, after this wonderful keynote speech and very fruitful question answer session, now it is time for all of us to listen the chief organizer and chairperson of this webinar series, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Bedkar, sir. I request you for your concluding words. Please, sir, welcome.
Today's resource person, Alice Whitehead, all the organizing committee members of our college, including vice principal, IQC coordinator, supervisors, sir, all the resource persons of this webinar series, and Akisha Bhor ma'am, who is along with her son and just communicated here. From so many days I was communicating with Alice for organizing such a webinar, but it was postponed by me. You always promptly replied about the webinar, you are willing to join here, but because of our technical problems we have postponed your webinar. And for your kind information, we are running this webinar from last 2 years, and this is going to end tomorrow, and we are going to filing a world record, Limca book record of this series, and you are one of the contributor of that. We are proud to be here that more than 20 resource person from abroad joined here and do very best for us. All were from various sides, mostly from educational side, as your story perfectly matches with our webinars main motto. Your service providing for the sustainable development, your target of 4.6 service programs, tips for amazing services, curricular development, problems finding, challenges and problems you have studied and noticed. You have lived your job and attached with these service programs along with your team, those who are working globally and very successfully, and one of the unit is in India also, as you have said. And your projects, your thinking for the betterment of community, and last message which you have given, that small things should may do a good, best thing or big things. So it's the thinking which we have to conclude with students, youngers, so that they can be skillfully developed in their activities, and they do need for this society more and more, because in future should be more awareness from the youngers to preserve or to protect our planet. Before that there were 3 persons. That theme and that idea is amazing one. If such youngers are coming ahead in the guidance of every activity is in our hand, and this new generation will go with more and more positively with all the things. So it's very best speech, best PPT, perfectly joined in time, and perfectly also willing to live in time. I was worried because I have no contact number with you. It was just a message on email. So up to joining of you, I was not confident because there may be some problem, because I can't communicate to you on this phone. So you perfectly joined, perfectly delivered, and give a best message to us also. In future also with your team, if you want to do some work with our unit or with any unit, as you feel better, you can come ahead, and we will also expect some cooperation for betterment of students. Those who you are using practically for you involve, can we involve with us? If you have any planning with that, you may have a MOU of our institute to your also institute also. Thank you for spreading such knowledge with energetically. You have joined here and give some energy to all the participants, those who are here working in the teaching field. Thank you, ma'am.
Now at the end, I am here for vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank today's honorable keynote speaker, Alice Whitehead ma'am, who has accepted the invitation of our college and blessed us with an enlightening lecture on the topic. The lecture was very inspirational, informative, practical, and it is for the betterment of the universe. And the message of the speech was quite clear, and it was, we should work for the betterment till it becomes too late for us. So we have to investigate, identify the problem, and prepare ourselves to find solution so that we can have better world for our future generations to live. So thank you, ma'am. I sincerely thank you on behalf of the organizing committee of Shri Kumarswami College, Ausa. Thank you once again. I also thank Chief Organizer and Chairperson of Principal Dr. M. Bedkar, sir. It goes without saying that the ambitious project of national and international webinars, it could be run only because of the strong academic leadership, his tenacity. And so I sincerely thank you, sir, on behalf of all the participants and organizing committee of Shri Kumarswami College, Ausa, because only because of you, we can hear national and international dignitaries who can enlighten us and enrich our knowledge. So thank you, sir. I also thank the participants. The participants are the soul of this webinar series. These are inseparable and integral part of this webinar series. These are very punctual in joining. These are very patient in listening. And these are very active in asking questions, raising doubts, giving suggestions, adding information and adding knowledge. So on behalf of the Shri Kumarswami College Organizing Committee of Webinar Series, we are grateful for you, because the webinar series is becoming successful because of the resource persons and the participants. Thank you once again. And now I request participants, please fill feedback link which is posted in the chat box so that you can have your certificate. And now, with the permission of Chief Organizer and Chairperson of this webinar series, I announce here that today's webinar is over. Thanks to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. We keep this webinar for 5 minutes continued for filling up the feedback. You may leave with thanks, and we may continue it in next episode also in future. We will be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you again for the opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be able to present to everyone. So very, very much appreciated. Okay, take care.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.